An 81-year-old veteran walked into court wearing his Bronze Star. What happened next left everyone speechless. The air inside courtroom 6B smelled faintly of lemon oil and old law books. The Tulsa County Courthouse, built in 1927, had seen its fair share of disputes, but no one expected the spark that morning to come from a soft-spoken veteran in a gray blazer. Thurston Rayner entered the courtroom with slow, steady steps. His brown Oxford were polished, and a worn leather folder was tucked under his arm. But what caught everyone's attention was a bronze star pinned over his heart. The metal shimmered under the courtroom lights as he moved toward the front with quiet determination. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. His presence was felt. As he passed, the chatter in the courtroom died down. Some people squinted at the medal, realizing what it was. Others didn't recognize it, but instinctively straightened in their seats. Then, a voice cut through the silence. "Mr. Rayner," said Judge Celeste Grantham without looking up, adjusting her glasses, "remove that medal or face contempt fine. This is a courtroom, not a parade." You could feel the air shift. Thurston looked down at his medal, then calmly back at the judge. "I'm not here to put on a show, Your Honor," he said evenly. "This medal is a part of me. I wear it like I wear my name." Judge Grantham, a sharp-tongued judge known for her no-nonsense demeanor, wasn't impressed. "That's irrelevant," she snapped. "Court policy prohibits personal insignia unless approved. That's a $200 fine. Let's proceed." A murmur ran through the room. Someone whispered, "That ain't right." But Thurston didn't argue. He didn't even flinch. He quietly opened his folder and reviewed the documents inside. When asked if he had legal representation, he looked up. "No," he said. "I'll be representing myself." A ripple moved through the room. Across the aisle, a sharply dressed young attorney named Wesley Brant smirked at his paralegal. This was going to be easy, he likely thought. Judge Grantham raised an eyebrow. "You're choosing to represent yourself in a civil property dispute involving over $40,000 in land value." "Yes." She blinked once. "Very well. Let's begin." On the other side stood Dean Melling, a wealthy developer flanked by two assistants. He was at least 3 decades younger than Thurston and dressed like someone used to getting his way. Melling's company had filed a petition to seize a 6-foot-wide strip of land behind Thurston's modest home, a strip Thurston had planted with peach trees nearly 20 years earlier. Brant walked to the front confidently. "We'll show today that Mr. Rayner's peach trees sit on our client property and must be removed immediately." Thurston adjusted his glasses. "Your Honor, I'd like to request permission to present evidence immediately after Mr. Brant's opening statement." Judge Grantham frowned. "We'll follow standard procedure. You will have your turn." "Understood," Thurston said with calm certainty. Brant began rattling off GPS coordinates, legal codes, and drone images. His presentation looked airtight. "This is a clear case of encroachment, Your Honor," he concluded. Grantham turned to Thurston. "Your response?" Thurston stood with only 3 sheets of paper in hand. "Before we get into boundary law," he began, "I asked the court to review the chain of title in this petition, specifically between 1992 and 2003. There appears to be a missing link." Brant rolled his eyes. "Explain," Judge Grantham said. Thurston held up 2 documents. "These are from the Tulsa County Recorder's Office. One shows a deed transfer to Mr. Melling's company. The other shows an easement granted to me in 1998, giving me the legal right to maintain that specific strip of land." He handed the documents to the bailiff. Brant whispered urgently to his assistant. The judge read the papers, her brow furrowing. "Mr. Brant, were you aware of this easement?" Brant stood. "The document appears authentic, Your Honor, but we question its relevance. Easements don't grant ownership." Thurston waited for silence, then stepped forward. "May I clarify?" Grantham nodded. "Go ahead." "I'm not claiming ownership through the easement. I'm asserting that I've cared for and maintained that strip of land for over 20 years, paid taxes on it, improved it, planted and harvested from it. Under Oklahoma's adverse possession law, that qualifies as legal ownership." The room went still. Brant chuckled. "That's quite a legal interpretation for someone without a lawyer." Thurston turned to him. still calm. Mr. Brandt, I spent 5 years in Vietnam, came home to a country that wouldn't look me in the eye, and earned my law degree while raising 3 children and working nights. Don't confuse quiet with ignorance. Even the court reporter paused. Judge Grantham said softly, "Objection sustained, but noted." Then she asked, "Do you have proof of your claim?" "I do," he replied. He opened another folder, handing over photographs, tax records, and signed affidavits from neighbors. Some images showed Thurston planting young peach trees. Others had children, possibly his grandchildren, harvesting ripe fruit years later. "Is Mrs. Gentry present?" the judge asked. An elderly woman stood. "Yes, Your Honor. I signed the affidavit. I remember when he planted those trees. We watched them grow together." "Thank you," the judge said, her tone gentler now. Brandt pushed back again. "Legal boundaries override personal history. We're prepared to bring in a surveyor." "That won't be necessary," Judge Grantham said. She turned to Thurston. "Where did you study law?" "Winfield College of Law, Arkansas, class of 76. The school closed in 92, but we produced some damn fine lawyers before then." Silence. Then a single clap rang from the back row, an older black veteran, hat in hand. One clap. Then stillness. "I didn't expect this," the judge admitted. "I know," Thurston replied, without arrogance, just honesty. She leaned back in her chair for the first time that morning. "Mr. Rayner, please continue your argument." He moved to a display board and rolled out 3 hand-drawn maps. They weren't fancy, just Sharpie, pencil, and precision. "The first," he explained, "is the original 1996 survey. It shows the property line stopping just short of the peach trees." He flipped to the second. "This one from 2005. Now, the boundary suddenly shifts 6 feet into the land I've maintained. No public notice. No official amendment. No hearing." Brandt interrupted. "Speculation." "No," Thurston replied. "It's procedural, and I'm requesting judicial review due to the absence of required public notice." Judge Grantham looked to Brandt. He hesitated. "I'll need to check with our records team." "You do that," she replied. "In the meantime, the court will review the zoning changes from 2005. The room buzzed again. Brandt asked for continuance. "No," Thurston said firmly. "This case has been on the docket 6 months. You've used drones. You tried to bulldoze trees I planted when your client was still in middle school. No more delays." The judge turned to Melling. "Were you aware any trees were removed?" "A few branches trimmed, maybe," Brandt said. Thurston held up new photos. 3 trees cut down to the stump just last week. The judge studied the photos, then glared at Melling. "Were your employees involved?" "My project manager's on leave. I wasn't aware." "Don't insult this court," she snapped. His smirk vanished. She turned to the clerk. "Issue a temporary injunction. No construction activity is allowed on Mr. Melling's parcel until further review." Melling protested. "This is absurd." "No," Grantham said, slamming her gavel. "What's absurd is altering land under dispute before a ruling. One more outburst, and you're out." Thurston remained quiet, but everyone in the room felt the weight of his words, his presence, his preparation. As court recessed for lunch, no one moved. People just sat there, processing what they had witnessed. A woman whispered, "He's not just some old man." Near the back, a young black law student named Isaiah Winslow stood frozen. His father had served in Iraq, but rarely spoke of it. Watching Thurston, Isaiah felt something shift inside him, like he'd just seen a masterclass in dignity, law, and quiet power. As Thurston exited the courtroom, the buzz returned, not with mockery, but with respect. And court wasn't even over yet. Thurston stepped forward, voice steady but quiet. "I had this reviewed by a handwriting analyst 2 weeks ago." He handed a slim folder to the bailiff. Judge Grantham took it, her demeanor shifting as she flipped through the pages. She paused near the center, brows drawing tight. "This county official, Deborah S. She left office in 2004. Her tone darkened. But this document was filed January 2005. She looked up slowly. You're alleging forgery. Thurston didn't blink. I'm alleging it deserves scrutiny. I'm not accusing anyone without evidence. But I've spent enough time in bureaucracies to recognize when something's been rubber-stamped that shouldn't have been. Brand jumped up. Objection. Hearsay. Speculative. Judge Grantham didn't even look at him. It's a discovery request, not a ruling. Overruled. A rustle spread through the courtroom. Grantham's tone had changed, less impatient, more focused. She was listening now. Thurston glanced toward the audience. I wasn't going to bring this up. But now that my peach trees are stumps, and I've been fined for wearing the only medal I ever earned for doing something right, I figured it should be part of the record. The silence that followed was thick and unshakable. Even Brant sat down without a word. Then, quietly, the courtroom doors creaked open. Grandpa, a girl, maybe 12 or 13, stood at the back of the room beside a woman in jeans and a cardigan. The woman quickly spoke. Sorry, Your Honor. We tried to wait, but she insisted on seeing him. Thurston's face softened. Come here, baby. The girl jogged down the aisle and hugged him around the waist. Did they take the trees? He rested a weathered hand on her back. Some of them, but they'll grow back. Just takes time and patience. The judge didn't interrupt. She watched quietly as Thurston looked up. She helped plant those with me. That's her history, too. Judge Grantham blinked, then cleared her throat. Let the record show that Mr. Rayner has raised a credible concern regarding procedural fraud. The court will submit the survey for forensic analysis within 5 business days. Any further construction on Mr. Melling's site remained frozen. Brant whispered furiously to Melling, who looked pale but stayed silent. Then Judge Grantham did something no one expected. Mr. Rayner, she asked carefully, what made you pursue law in the first place? Thurston looked at her a long moment. You really want to know? She nodded. He scanned the room, then spoke. I came back from Vietnam with shrapnel in my shoulder and a DD-214 full of holes. The VA denied my benefits, said I didn't have the right documentation. I couldn't afford a lawyer, so I sat in the public library for 4 years reading code books and taking notes by hand. I won my appeal. He paused, then added, but what stayed with me was a line of veterans outside the VA, guys sleeping in their cars, women turned away with babies in strollers. I thought, if I can help them, maybe I'd sleep better at night. Judge Grantham nodded. That's what justice looks like, Mr. Rayner. Not every lawyer remembers. He didn't smile, but something in his posture eased. Just then, the courtroom doors opened again. A local reporter entered, notebook in hand. She didn't interrupt, just took a seat in the back. But what no one knew was that someone else had been watching from afar, and their arrival would change everything. Later that day, the afternoon sun poured through the high windows of courtroom 6B. Hours had passed, yet no one had asked for a break. No one even glanced at the clock. Judge Grantham reviewed the last document from Thurston's folder, her face intent. You raised the issue of a forged signature on the 2005 survey. I'll issue a formal review. Earlier, you mentioned the developer's permits might be faulty as well. Thurston nodded. Yes, Your Honor. 2 months ago, I filed an open record request for all permit applications related to Mr. Melling's project, specifically for a variant to build within 5 feet of a residential lot. That variance doesn't exist. Not from 2019. Not from 2020. Not ever. Grantham raised an eyebrow. Are you certain? Only 3 variances were granted on that block in the past decade. None applied to that lot. If construction happened anyway, the judge said, then someone's office is in a lot of trouble, Thurston finished. Brant stood so fast his chair skidded. Your Honor, I move to strike. This is beyond the scope of the hearing. Sit down, Mr. Brant, Grantham said firmly. I've heard enough to warrant deeper inquiry. She flipped through the permit pages. This parcel number is outdated. The permit office should have caught that. I'm flagging this for municipal review. Brant leaned over to Melling, who now had sweat beading at his temples. What do we do? You're the lawyer, Melling hissed. Fix it. Brant stood again. Your Honor, We're prepared to settle. Thurston tilted his head. Now you want to settle? Brant hesitated. I gave you 6 months to settle. Before a single tree was touched, Thurston continued. But you bulldozed them anyway. Melling stood abruptly. His voice cracked. I didn't know. My project manager. You paid for liberties. Thurston cut in. That land fed my grandkids. It was the last piece of ground these old hands could still work. You thought it was worthless because an old man owned it. Judge Grantham leaned in. Mr. Rayner, are you seeking damages? He paused. I'm not here to bankrupt anyone. I just want them to restore what they destroyed and leave my land alone. No settlement, just restoration. The judge nodded. Understood. Just then, the bailiff approached. Your Honor, this just came from the Tulsa zoning office, marked urgent. Grantham opened the envelope, read it, then read it again. The city confirms a parcel number on Mr. Melling's permits was retired in 2010. These permits are invalid. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Grantham turned to Melling. You will cease all construction immediately. You will pay for the destroyed trees and all legal fees related to this hearing. If evidence shows the documents were altered to obtain those permits, criminal charges may follow. Melling stared ahead, speechless. Brant sat down hard. Judge Grantham turned to Thurston. Anything else? Yes, he said. I want the court to officially acknowledge my full legal possession of that land strip, and I want it filed today. She raised her gavel. So ordered. But before she could adjourn, a hand rolled from the second row. It belonged to Isaiah Winslow, a young law student who had watched every moment unfold like his future depended on it. He stood, nervous but clear. Your Honor, may I speak? Grantham looked surprised but nodded. State your name for the record. Isaiah Winslow, second-year law student, Tulsa College of Law. I'm here for courtroom observation. Proceed. Isaiah glanced at Thurston, then faced the bench. I just want to say thank you for what happened today. I've watched too many hearings where men like Mr. Rayner, people who look like me, get steamrolled. But today, this man taught more law than I've learned in a semester. A murmur swept through the room. He reminded me that law isn't just about rules. It's about standing your ground when people pretend you don't have any. He sat down quickly. Thurston nodded to him, small but meaningful. Grantham exhaled slowly. Thank you, Mr. Winslow. Your comments are noted. Then she turned back to the courtroom and did something no one expected. When Mr. Rayner walked in today wearing his military medal, I responded with authority, not judgment. That was a mistake. The courtroom stilled. I let protocol override principle. And that fine? I rescind it. I apologize. Thurston nodded. Thank you, Your Honor. She wasn't finished. I also wanted on record that your medal did not disturb the court. It reminded us what service and discipline truly look like. No applause, just reverent silence. This court acknowledges your legal ownership of the land. The construction injunction remains. A restitution hearing will be scheduled within 30 days. Grantham stood. Court is adjourned. The gavel tapped once. People rose, but no one left. Isaiah approached. Mr. Rayner, sir, if you ever want to teach, just once, I know students who'd line up to learn. Thurston smiled faintly. Son, at my age, standing too long is a real challenge. But thank you. A few people shook his hand. Even a zoning official came by to thank him for raising red flags they had missed. Grantham approached him quietly. May I speak with you? He nodded. In a quiet hallway, she said, I wasn't always like this, rigid, but somewhere the road made me forget how to listen. Thurston didn't gloat. Today, you let the truth speak. That's more than most. She nodded slowly. I hope we crossed paths for a reason. You did, he said, to remember. But the day wasn't over. When Thurston stepped outside into the fading Tulsa light, the courthouse doors opened behind him. Then a single clap, then another. A small crowd had gathered, neighbors, veterans, city workers, strangers. Their applause wasn't loud, but it was steady. grounded, honest. His granddaughter ran up. "Grandpa, did you win?" He looked down at her, then at the people behind her, and smiled. "I didn't win, baby. I just held my ground." Thurston Rayner's voice was low, but it carried. Those nearest to him heard it, felt it, and somehow those simple words rang more true than any headline ever could. His daughter, standing beside him, squeezed his arm. "No, Daddy," she said, her voice proud and steady. "You didn't just hold your ground. You reminded people that some things still matter: truth, pride, and history." Reporters edged closer, cameras raised, microphones extended. "Mr. Rayner, how does it feel to be vindicated?" someone shouted. Thurston raised a hand, not to wave, but to still the noise. "I'm not here for a headline," he said calmly. "I showed up because I got tired of being ignored. I've watched too many men be buried before they ever got to say their piece." And just like that, he turned his back on the press. He didn't need the spotlight. He'd already said what mattered. Behind him, Judge Celeste Grantham appeared through a side door. She'd been told to avoid the press, but she stayed anyway. She needed to see it for herself, the way people looked at Thurston, not with pity, but with respect. Nearby, Isaiah Winslow stood quietly with a notebook in hand, unsure whether to approach. Thurston noticed him. "You got something on your mind, son?" Isaiah stepped forward, a little nervous. "I was thinking about something you said. About reading old zoning code books at the library. Do you still have those notes?" Thurston chuckled. "They are stacked in some old boxes. My handwriting's not exactly made for public viewing." "I'd like to scan them," Isaiah said. "Digitize them. So students, real students, can learn from you. What you did today, sir, that's history." Thurston studied the young man. "You think people care about some dusty old man's notes?" "I do," Isaiah said without hesitation. "And after today, I think a lot more will." Before he could respond, a man in a suit pushed through the crowd, looking flustered but determined. "Mr. Rayner, I'm with the Tulsa Veterans Legacy Fund. We saw the live feed. If you'd ever be willing to speak at one of our gatherings, or even advise us, we'd be honored." Thurston raised an eyebrow. "You sure you want someone who just embarrassed half the city's land board?" The man grinned. "Exactly the kind of voice we need." Thurston glanced at his daughter, who gave a small nod. "I'll think about it," he said, "but I'm not wearing a suit." "You don't need to," the man replied. From the edge of the crowd, an old veteran in a Navy cap called out, "You still got those peach tree cuttings, Thurston?" This time, Thurston smiled for real. "You bet I do. You want one?" "Hell yes. I'll plant it next to my porch. You've already planted enough lessons for the whole city." Laughter rippled through the group. Someone shouted, "Semper Fi." Another waved a tiny American flag. It wasn't a parade. It didn't need to be. Thurston took a step down the courthouse days, then another. The cameras didn't follow. The press didn't push. There were no more quotes. Because sometimes victory doesn't look like breaking news or booming speeches. Sometimes it's just a quiet walk home after doing what needed to be done. What he didn't know then was that his walk would end up on the front page. The next morning, the Tulsa Tribune ran a black and white photo of Thurston standing tall on the courthouse steps, his bronze star peeking beneath the headline. "Veterans Land Battle Ends with Apology and Justice." But while talk shows buzz and social media dissected every clip, Thurston sat on his back porch, drinking coffee, watching a bird peck at the grass. No screens, no noise, just waiting. At 9:12 a.m., a car pulled into the driveway. Judge Grantham stepped out, wearing a simple navy blazer, slacks, and holding a folder. He met her halfway. "Didn't expect a house call," he said. "I figured this was better than an email," she replied. He motioned to the chair next to his. "Hope you drink coffee." "I do." They sat in silence for a moment, the wind moving gently through the maple trees. Then she handed him the folder. "It's the formal statement. The land is yours. The fine is erased. All documents sealed and recorded." Thurston folded the paper carefully and slid it into his pocket. "Appreciate it." She looked at him. This case reminded me of something I forgot. What's that? That justice isn't sterile. It's not just codes and clauses. It's human. He nodded. Most folks forget that. I didn't just forget. I ran from it, she said softly. Why? I spent most of my early years trying to earn respect in rooms where I didn't belong. So I followed every rule to the letter. Thought that'd protect me. Did it? Sometimes. But I lost something along the way. Empathy. She nodded, and the ability to admit when I was wrong. They sat quietly again. Then she turned to him. There's something else, not on the record. Would you consider joining a new city legal review board? It's launching next year. You'd advise on property cases. No politics. Just fairness. You sure they want someone who can't see straight without these old glasses? They want someone who knows what justice looks like when it's been ignored. Thurston scratched his chin. You already got my mornings tied up with these peach trees. You can bring a basket to every meeting, she smiled. He chuckled. That's how you bribe a board, huh? No, she said. That's how we rebuild trust. He paused, then nodded. Yeah, I'll do it. She stood, offered her hand, and he shook it firmly. I'm glad we met the way we did, she said. Funny, he replied. So am I. As she walked back to her car, she turned one last time. Oh, and Mr. Rayner? Yeah. You're still not allowed to wear that medal in court. He blinked. But next time, I'll wear mine too. She drove off before he could respond. He didn't need to. He sat back down and sipped his coffee, his granddaughter's voice from the day before echoing in his head. Did they take the trees, Grandpa? No, baby, they didn't. And now they never will. But this story wasn't just about one man's land. It had become something far bigger. By Monday, Thurston Rayner's name had crossed state lines. His quiet words, I didn't win, I held my ground, were reposted over 1 million times. Veterans groups called from coast to coast asking for court transcripts. Letters poured in. Some contained medals, others peach seeds. Many just carried words. You reminded me who I used to be. They cut down your trees, but not your roots. Thank you for holding your ground so we could find ours. One letter came from a 17-year-old girl in Birmingham. You made me want to study law. I didn't think the courtroom was for people like us. Now I do. Thurston read it 3 times, then folded it and tucked it into the inside pocket of his blazer, right where the medal usually rested. Meanwhile, Isaiah returned with a tablet in hand. I started the archive, he said. Your notes, the court audio, it's all there. People are already using it in classrooms. Thurston stared at the screen, shaking his head. Never thought I'd end up in someone's syllabus. You didn't just argue a case, Isaiah said. You gave people permission to be heard. They sat together for a while, talking about old cases, about veterans denied benefits, widows overlooked, knights writing appeals by hand when no printer worked. Isaiah recorded some of it. They called the Project Roots. The city council later named the new legal panel after him, the Thurston Rayner Community Equity Board. He didn't attend the ceremony, but he sent a letter. Justice is not a favor. It's a responsibility. I don't want plaques. I just want the next quiet man who walks into a courtroom with truth in his pocket, not to be asked to empty it at the door. Weeks passed, but the story kept echoing. Other communities started re-examining land transfers. Zoning policies were reviewed. Across the country, people started asking better questions. And Thurston, he remained the same. Every Friday, he brought a basket of peaches to the local shelter. When asked why, he simply said, Those trees owe me nothing, but I still owe plenty. That's who he was. Quiet, clear, unshaken. And if you ever walk through the East Tulsa Community Garden at sunset, you might find a small plaque near the back. It doesn't stand out. It simply reads, He held his ground so others could grow. That's not just Thurston Rayner's story. That's a reminder, because courage doesn't always sound like a war cry. Sometimes it sounds like an old man with a folder and a tree. If this story moved you, share it, speak it, Teach it. Subscribe for more true stories that remind us what justice should feel like. Human.